Wow, stunner after stunner on Monday Night Football. The Jets in overtime beat the Buffalo Bills, but the biggest story is Aaron Rodgers' career potentially in New York ends before it even gets started. And who replaces Aaron Rodgers at quarterback? All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode of P&W is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use all lowercase code Locked On NFL for a first deposit match up to $100. I mean, just a wild one on Monday Night Football. Speaking of Prize Picks, I played my Prize Picks. I had 5 picks, Matt. 0 for 5 on my picks, including some hires with Aaron Rodgers, some more than stats with which obviously didn't happen. The Garrett Wilson more than stats did not happen as well in that one. Let's get to the game first because there's a lot of questions about Aaron Rodgers in the quarterback position now for the New York Jets, but just unbelievable. The star power coming into this game in New York, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, and it's Xavier Gipson with the walk-off in overtime, the most unknown player on probably either roster. Just an unbelievable game. So many stories. What's the first thing that comes to mind with Bills Jets? 22-16 win for the Jets somehow over the Bills.
Yeah, really good game. A lot of takeaways from this game. And first of all, I just wanted to commend the NFL for doing back-to-back New York home games on 9/10 and then 9/11 and having, Aaron Rodgers versus Josh Allen on 9/11 in New York. I mean, very, very cool environment. Unfortunately, Rodgers lasted 4 snaps, which is horrible, tragic, etc. We'll talk about all the ramifications of that, I'm sure. But just talking about the game, how about this? The Bengals, Chiefs, and Bills are all 0-1. Like the AFC is, topsy-turvy at the moment. And I thought I love Josh Allen, but he's so reckless. I mean, the way he treats his body, the way he puts the ball in harm's way. 4 turnovers by the Bills in this game, or it probably, I don't want to say it wouldn't be close, but it wouldn't have been nearly this competitive. And I put a tweet out, and with all respect to your Niners, I said, I think the Jets and Cowboys are the best 2 defenses in the league, followed by the Niners. And I had the Niners third just because I think their secondary is good, not great. And their schedule that last year was easier than these other 2. But boy, the Jets D was super impressive. Allen was rattled. James Cook was fine. Diggs was fine. Bills D was impressive. They got some pressure and did some good things. But I commend the Jets. I mean, the toughness on defense and running the football. I've had Breece Hall on my fantasy bench just because I wanted to see more, but boy, he looks great. You mentioned Wilson, the receiver. What a superstar he is, and an amazing touchdown catch in this game. I can understand why Robert Saleh was reeling it in late, but man, I would have taken a shot to Wilson one-on-one, even with Zach Wilson as my quarterback. And of course, we're going to have to talk about all these ramifications. So crazy.
So this is what happened on Monday for me. I watched the first half of the game. Aaron Rodgers is out, and it's like, man, that's too bad. Call a friend that's a Jets fan, give him a hug. Unbelievable, right? Air sucked out of the stadium. Aaron Rodgers carted off. And I had a softball game on Monday night. So during the second half of the game, I was kind of, getting some updates during the game, and then went back, I was going to go back to watch it later. And I definitely had to go watch it later because you're getting these updates like, wait a second, what? It's tied? The Jets came back to tie it in the second half? And wait, overtime? Hold on. What, walk off? What's going on? I was like, oh my God, I got to go watch this game now. The second half was a lot better than I expected. And so many takeaways from both teams here. But I want to go to the Hall-Cook combination, which is kind of nice in the backfield for the Jets and is maybe going to be a saving grace that they can maybe run the ball and make some plays with some other players if not getting high-level quarterback play the rest of the year and potentially win some games on defense and with some playmakers, as they did in this one. But Breece Hall chews up so much ground with each stride when he runs, and it was really cool to see him back on the field. And it was kind of like, okay, unknown, where is he going to be healthy? Is he ready to go to start the season? And he looked as dynamic as he did as a rookie before the injury. So that was fun to watch, seeing him rip off big plays.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of us looked at the Dalvin Cook signing as, wow, that's nice insurance as Hall recovers from this major injury. And Rodgers probably wanted him and played against Hall in their NFC North days. But now it's insurance for bad quarterbacking. Obviously, it's very clear what the Jets are going to do. A two-headed Studley backfield, take shots to Wilson, play great defense, and hopefully not have to win games on punt return touchdowns and overtime. But, they're not going to blow anybody out.
And both of those running backs can make plays in the passing game as well. You're a little worried about some of the offensive line stuff with the Jets. Like, that's not their strongest unit. And then, of course, now immediately the answer that we're going to ask a little bit later, the question is, how do you replace Aaron Rodgers? What are the Jets going to do now? The immediate answer is, well, you have to go in-house. The only active quarterbacks they had was Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson. So what did you think about Zach Wilson's play on Monday? And what do you think about him going forward if that turns out to be really the only plan for the Jets? Is, okay, QB2, it's Zach Wilson. Now you're QB1. 14 of 21 passing, 140 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception.
Well, they obviously didn't let him play like a wild stallion. I mean, we're going to hand the ball off. It's a close game. Trust the defense. That formula we just laid out, which of course is going to be their plan. I think it's a little rough to judge him just off of that. I mean, obviously Rodgers dominated all the first team touches. Very good defense. It's not easy to play against. You mentioned, I think the Bills were better at the line of scrimmage than the Jets O-line. That might be the case over and over. But I thought he settled in and got a little more comfortable. I mean, 2 or 3 times he tried to take like a 30-yard sack, just running backwards like crazy. I mean, there's some things like that to his game that make me nuts, but very pivotal time in his career. You know what I mean? I mean,
you don't want to see Phil in year 3, right? You need to see him grow beyond that. And look, Josh Allen still hasn't grown beyond his wild edges either. You expect, okay, new Josh Allen. You hear reports, he's not going to run the ball as much. They don't want him to get hit as much. It's like he combs his hair real nice before week 1. Maybe even wears some spectacles. He's like, okay, I'm a good boy, and he's just wild as ever. Throws 3 interceptions, all to Jordan Whitehead, and Zach Wilson's still running around like he's at BYU. It's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's just heredity, nature versus nurture. You can't get the nurture out of these guys. And most of that's great with Allen. Most of that's terrible with Wilson. But it's got to be frustrating for a coach, because if Allen plays this thing a little closer to the vest, they probably win the game.
Okay, next, we have to ask the question, what to do about Aaron Rodgers now. Confirmed officially now on Tuesday morning that it is a torn Achilles. Aaron Rodgers done for at least this year for the New York Jets. Next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. The NFL season off and running. And such incredible offers from FanDuel right now for new customers. Just bet $5 for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. No matter if that first $5 bet wins or loses, you get the $200 in bonus bets. Plus, all customers, new and old at FanDuel, who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Tons of ways to bet NFL football on FanDuel. Spreads, player props. There's season-long bets. You build your own parlays. The website is so easy to use. The app is easy to use. It is the best time to join FanDuel. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Okay, before we get to the Rodgers stuff, just a real quick snapshot. We did this yesterday with a lot of the teams on Sunday after seeing them in week one, sort of grand proclamations. Are the Buffalo Bills a team that's maybe overrated coming into the year? Seeing them in week one lose a game to a team that lost their star quarterback, does that drop them in Matt Williamson's power rankings down behind some NFC teams and maybe even some AFC teams? Because if I'm not mistaken, they were your number
I picked them to win the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl favorite coming into the year. Right now, start the year 0-1, little 0-1 hole. Not a difficult hole to climb out of, but a hole they didn't want to be in to start the year.
I'm not going to kill them for it. I mean, I would have liked to have seen better play with their line of scrimmage too, although I think the Jets front is awesome. I mean, I'm worried about both these teams' O-lines, to be very honest with you. The Bills haven't had a running game forever, and Cook looked good, but he's still, I don't know. I mean, if I were them, I want Jerome Bettis. You know what I mean? Like, you play in Buffalo.
You know what? His brother would have been a nice fit in Buffalo too.
How about that, right. I thought about that as well. I mean, I thought they overpaid for Dalvin, and other teams might not want to go down that road. But that being said, I didn't really have a strong Super Bowl favorite, so I took them reluctantly, and I'm not backing out of my pick. I think they have as good a shot as anybody else, but I'm not going to crush them for this. I think they're still a heavy contender, but in that division, you look around, all of a sudden, you're a game behind the Jets and Dolphins, both of whom Dolphins look great, and you lost the head-to-head of the Jets. Yeah, it's only September 12th, but all of a sudden, you're in a bind. You know, I mean, that division's brutal.
And as they say, teams will lie to you in week one. Are the Jets lying to us, telling us that they're contenders? They're in first place in the AFC East right now, even without Aaron Rodgers.
I don't know about that. I mean, they have them and the Patriots have the toughest schedules in the league. I don't know that they'll be able to pull rabbits out of their hat week after week. But, I mean, I do really like their running game. Garrett Wilson should be able to keep that honest. And I think their defense is flat out elite. So I think they'll be hard to play against. I mean, can they string together 11 or 10 more wins? It seems unlikely considering who they have to play. But I also don't want to say Zach Wilson's a bust. He stinks. You know, this is a golden opportunity for Wilson. You know, I mean, he could really redeem his standing in the league.
Okay, so right now we have path A, which is the short-term path no matter what, which is Zach Wilson is the Jets starting quarterback, potentially the rest of the year. So we are going to do a little versus of that scenario. Scenario A, Zach Wilson versus some of these other options for the 49ers or for the New York Jets. And, you know, some quarterback trades already happen. There are some options maybe in the trade market. We'll start with some free agents. Of course, Tim Boyle is on the Jets practice squad. He gets called up to practice this week, most likely, and potentially some other moves now could happen. So we'll start with the big name out there. I mean, there's literally commercials about it all over the weekend, all over the NFL football weekend. Aaron Rodgers making fun of coming out of retirement, right? What about Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets? He was just in Foxborough on Sunday,
Brady,
waving to the fans, right? What if he's almost in the division playing against the Patriots?
Okay, you said Aaron Rodgers. I know you meant Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, yes, Tom Brady.
Okay. I hadn't thought of that, but wow. I mean, he would be able to acclimate himself pretty quick. I have one thing I'll throw out just before I forget, though. So remember the Packers-Jets trade. It entailed Rodgers playing X amount of snaps this year. So now the Packers aren't going to get a first-round pick in return. They're going to get a second. Like, that's a done deal.
Oh.
Now, so no one seems to be mentioning that. I mean, Packers fans aren't thrilled about this. They were about to get a first. So are they allowed? I'm not saying the Jets would do this. Are they now allowed to trade their first-round pick because it's conditional? I mean, now that he's on IR, is that a done deal, or do they have to wait till the end of the year to make sure he doesn't play 66% of the snaps? Or what? I'm just curious what the legal rule of that is.
That's interesting. I would think that they could trade it, and I would think that they could have. So that's
once he's on season-ending IR, he can't come off, and I would think it's a done deal. Or contractually, you have to wait until the last whistle of Week 18.
Is it like, or draft
I don't
picks
know,
like,
you know,
like escrow, you know?
Yeah.
You have to put your first and second round pick in escrow, and nothing can happen until the deal is complete. And then you can use whatever you have in your account. That's
I don't know. I'm just curious. I just wanted to throw it out there because I've never had anyone in the last 24 hours talk about that angle or the Packers saying, "Oh man, we wanted a first, we got a second."
Right.
Brady's unbelievably interesting. Could he come in and get acclimated within a couple weeks and hand the ball off a lot and play great defense and be smart? Probably.
I would think so. I would think he would be at very worst Zach Wilson level if he showed up and started this week 2.
Yeah. I mean, what I don't know extremely well is the money aspect of all of it, because I was going to bring up that second round pick thing, because what if you traded for Matthew Stafford? But can you have Rodgers' contract and Stafford's contract? Can you have Rodgers and Brady? Can Brady take close to league minimum and just say, I want to play and give it one more shot? I'm looking at it now. The Jets have $9 million in cap space as we speak. Can they restructure people? I don't know, but they don't have a ton for the following year. I'm talking out the wrong end here about cap stuff, but you have a lot of money invested in a quarterback. Can you go get an expensive guy? I bet that's going to be tough.
I think the trade part becomes more difficult because I think, a team like the Rams just won week 1. So they're like, they're not going to trade their quarterback today. They might in week 8 if things go differently. So I think the trade market gets a little bit more difficult. Not many difference makers you could get on the trade market. It'd be maybe a backup or a player that, has fallen out. If somebody else is Zach Wilson that you get to come in, like if this happened, they could have traded for Trey Lance if this happened a couple of weeks ago, right? And they could have, brought in another young guy to compete and just see what you have. And, because who knows, you're one play away from not having Zach Wilson either. So you have to make a roster move at quarterback. So all options, I'm sure, being explored. On the trade market, Stafford, I didn't really even think about. That's a phenomenal one for the Jets. If you could talk the Rams into doing it.
And if you could afford it, I mean, he's not cheap, and Rodgers isn't cheap, of course. And what would
the Stafford one would have to be the Rams go in the tank now until mid-season, week 8 trade deadline, then become open to trading. And Zach Wilson is also bad, but the Jets still win some games or are in a place where they could go win still with a different quarterback. And you think that he could be ready and playing at a high level. I think as far as the terminology, that would be a fit. I think that he would be able to pick that offense up pretty quickly. It's in the same family of offenses, right? And some familiar coaches that have coordinated together in the past with that scheme. So, yeah, that's actually a really interesting one. I like that one a lot.
The other thing, and I have a 6 name list here of not inspiring quarterbacks, but maybe you kick the tires on. But the other thing is Rodgers ever going to play football again? I mean, that's an awful injury to come back from at his age.
Right. Are you planning for 2024 as much as 2023 with whatever quarterback move you make right now?
That's what I'm saying.
And you can't be trading first round picks if you might need that to go draft the quarterback.
That's why I'm having all these talks out loud, and I want to throw Kyler Murray's name in there,
another good one.
Would you be in the market for that? And if maybe he comes back in week 12 and at that point you're 7-5 and you throw him into the mix, or Andy's there for next year, you know what I mean? Or I don't know, but you don't have a second and you might not be able to trade it first. So here's my boring list. You could call Carson Wentz right now.
Yeah.
And
kind of the most common name I've seen out there. He's available. He's played recently. You can proceed, and I would proceed with any of these names or most of them. Zach, you're the starter, but we have to do something else, and we'll see how this goes. But you treat it like Zach's a starter, and of course they're doing that as we speak. Could you trade for Tannehill? I keep thinking about him in Atlanta. Not today.
Not yet. That's the thing. It's not bad enough yet.
What's rough for the Jets is they need a guy in to get them ready and acclimated to make a bigger difference in the season. If you don't make a trade until, if a guy doesn't come in until week 9 and then it takes a couple weeks to get going, do you still have the opportunity to be the team you wanted to be and get in the playoffs, and does that quarterback make a difference at that point? So that's why the trade market's so tough here.
Very tough. So Tannehill, to me, I don't think they're dumping him yet. You'd have to blow their doors off.
And I don't know. I might just roll with Zach Wilson.
Right.
Depending on what it would cost.
Exactly. Am I really giving up a future asset for that? I don't think Washington should or would trade Brissett. I mean, you're not out of the woods with Howell yet, and you're trying to save your job. I'm not dumping Brissett for a 4th-round pick or something like that because he might be my starter in 2 weeks.
What about
I got 3 other Matt
Ryan one of your names?
No, too done. I thought he was really, really bad last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wouldn't call Ben or Rivers or Ryan. I mean, they were all. There's a connection, but no. I think all those guys are shot. But how about these 3? I don't think they'd cost a lot. They wouldn't even necessarily come in and steal the starting job, but they would at least compete or be in the mix. Minshew, Trubisky, Jameis Winston.
I like all 3 of those.
Yeah, I mean, that makes you a better team. It gives you an option at least.
What are the Steelers asking for Trubisky? If the Jets,
I think he's the cheapest of the 3.
Really,
4th or 5th. 5th probably gets it done. Jameis maybe pick, a 3rd or 4th.
Veteran. Are any of those okay? We're going to groom him to play in front of Zach Wilson in the near future.
Not on the surface, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
Zach could be awful. He could be the worst
Zach
quarterback in the league.
Play out of the job more so than we're bringing in Carson Wentz to potentially start over him, and that's the plan from jump.
Right, but we've also seen this guy's entire career, and he's basically been the worst quarterback in the league when he's been on the field.
True.
So let's not forget that.
So the difference-making options are the trade options, and just none of those can quite happen yet.
Yeah,
that's the conclusion here, and the rest are okay. Let's go, Zach. Let's slap him on the butt. Zach Wilson, it's your time, and we're going to bring in a backup quarterback for you in case you fall on your face.
And the tiny, tiny silver lining is you still have your 1st-round pick next year.
I'd love to hear how that conversation goes, how long the conversation is when they call Tom Brady, because they got to call him.
You got to call him. I mean, that would be fun. Would Tom do it for like $3 million a year? I got money. You know what I mean?
I can't wait. I'm sure there's going to be some news very soon on some of these things, and we'll hear some reports about some calls that are being made. Very interesting. Not done yet. The New York Jets 2023 season, even though Aaron Rodgers' season is done due to an Achilles. Okay, next, Chris Jones back with KC on a 1-year deal. Some other injuries as well around the NFL from week 1 next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Prize Picks. If you picked the higher on Aaron Rodgers, well, he didn't get you any points in any of your fantasy leagues, in any of your Prize Picks as I picked. But guess what? You get to do it all over again in week 2 if you didn't win. And if you pick 2 or more players, you picked more or less than their projected stats, and you hit on them, then you won up to 25 times your money in week 1. It is so much fun to play daily fantasy with Prize Picks. Really simple to play. Picks take 60 seconds or less. You can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. You pick 2 or more players, and their projected stats are there. Touchdowns, yards, and you go more or less, and boom. If you hit those picks, you win. All you got to do is you go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code lowercase LockedOnNFL for a free deposit match up to $100. Fantasy sports made easy. Go play daily fantasy at Prize Picks. prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Okay, big news for the Kansas City Chiefs that dropped a week 1 matchup, and they don't want to drop any more. With Kelsey on the shelf for week 1 and no Chris Jones, it made things incredibly difficult for Patrick Mahomes and the rest of the team that was on the field in week 1 for the Kansas City Chiefs. And now they've figured something out, at least short term, with Chris Jones. And it really feels like this is going to be the end for Chris Jones in Kansas City. Not able to get a long-term deal done, but he will start playing this year on a 1-year contract with $21.25 million potentially total earned. It is a base salary of around $20 million with an extra $1.25 million in incentives, though. So he's making the money he wanted to for 1 year. And as far as I know, there was no non-franchise tag stipulation in this, right, Matt? So who knows how weird this will get again next offseason. But for now, Chris Jones is back with the Chiefs.
Yeah, my take on this is kind of like the Saquon and Josh Jacobs deal. Like, we're going to call it a 1-year deal, but we're throwing you $1 million or $2 million just so this goes away and get you on the field. It's gone long enough. Nobody on either side really got what they wanted, but we just want to play. Chris Jones was paying $50,000 a day and missed a game check. I'm sure that was getting old. And Mrs. Jones was saying, "Hey, Chris, why don't you go back to work?"
Yeah.
So, but my take on it really is, did week 1 just poke the Kansas City Bear? And now all of a sudden, here comes the defensive player of the year candidate storming back, a pissed off Chiefs team, and Kelsey feeling spry, and they just run the table and win it all again,
No doubt. And I think teams like the Bills, teams like the Chiefs, those are really good football teams. And you watch the tape, you don't want to be, I think, the week 2 opponent for either the Chiefs or the Bills. And by the way, who are the Chiefs playing in week 2?
Jacksonville.
Oh, that's a good one too. Playoff rematch, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. It's gonna be a tough one for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but I don't want to play the Chiefs next week. That's for sure.
No, I don't either. I mean,
what do you think about these other injuries that happen around the NFL? What are the biggest ones? I know there's a couple in Pittsburgh too.
2 bad ones for the Steelers. Neither are super long term, but they're going to miss time or several weeks, or the things are being thrown around with Cam Hayward, who's incredibly important, and Deontay Johnson, who's quite important. There are some okay replacements, but Hayward's a massive, massive loss. I mean, probably the biggest strength of the team is the defensive front, and him and Watt make that. They're definitely the straws that stir the drink. And you look at, they're hosting the Browns on Monday night here, and all of a sudden, if you're 0-2 in this division, you could be in big trouble. And I have a crazy stat that I bet but blew me away finishing up my Niner-Steeler research. So last year, every team after they played the Niners, the game after they played the Niners, lost 0-15. There's 2 exceptions. Whoever they beat in week 18 didn't have another game, so that didn't count. And the Chiefs had a bye the week after the Niner game. So if you played the week after getting your butt kicked basically by the Niners, you're lost. You were 0-15. First time in NFL history. So doesn't bode great for my Steelers that you got pushed around and now you lost 2 of your most important dudes and you're playing the Browns that are flying high.
Sneaky fantasy play next week. Calvin Austin. He's a fun player.
Yep.
I like him. And he ended up being the leading receiver for the Steelers after Deontay went out.
Yeah, and what they did with him is instead of taking Robinson out of the slot, Allen Robinson, and moving him to Deontay's spot, they just made Calvin a direct replacement for Deontay, which is exactly what he did at Memphis. Everyone looks at him like he's a tiny little dude. He was an outside the numbers real receiver at Memphis.
I saw something about Kenny Pickett, not to spend too much more time on this Steelers game, but he early in that game, the first series, he got slammed to the ground and he had 2 concussions last year. Do you think that played a part in how, because he missed guys? When I watched that game back, he was really bad.
Really, really bad. And accuracy is his thing. Couldn't hit a broadside of a barn. I wrote an article about it today, Deontay, you watch the All-22, Deontay's open a ton. I mean, there's a lot of receivers open. Of course, the whole town wants to kill Matt Canada. I mean, fire him.
Yeah.
Of course,
but they wanted to run him out already this offseason.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that he's a star, but Kenny was a double A. I mean, Kenny was horrible in this game, and I retweeted it. Dave Damashek, I'm sure people know who Dave Damashek is, but he's a noted Steeler homer, and he actually does some stuff with us on Steelers.com. Showed a clip that I retweeted or X'd or whatever of Kenny's head slamming into the turf very early, and he was really bad from that point on and wasn't great before, but it was really, really early in the game. That would be his 3rd in a year. I don't know which is more concerning as a Steeler fan, that third concussion or that he was a terrible football player.
Or that he's just bad. Yeah.
Right. Which one's better? Yeah. Do we want to explain the badness away because of injury, or do we want our quarterback to have a bunch of head injuries? I don't think either is particularly great.
You got a couple other injuries that you have pulled up.
Yeah,
there.
what were some of them?
Marcus Williams, right?
Marcus Williams has a pec. He's going to miss significant time. We talked about Dobbins. All of a sudden the AFC North is a bloodbath. We talked about Dobbins, and two of their best linemen, Linderbaum, the center, and Stanley, the left tackle, are both highly questionable going forward. Jack Conklin, the right tackle for the Browns, too. It's like all these AFC North people just beating each other up is out, I think, for the season. But they have that monster from Ohio State that they like, Dwan Jones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He looks good. He's going to be plug and play. Absolutely. Steal of a pick. And the thing with him was, does he love football? And he's like, I'm trying to tell y'all, I'm not going to. Sure, when I was a kid, I wanted to play in the NBA, but I'm a professional player right now. And you will go watch the Ohio State tape, and I was good. And guess what? You watch the preseason tape, I'm still good. So they might have got a steal and a starting caliber player right away there in Cleveland.
And he gets TJ Watt on Monday night here. So welcome to the big leagues.
He gets first time starters at right tackle in back-to-back games to start the year. So look out for the stat book filled up from TJ Watt. All right. Fantastic stuff.
Mailbag tomorrow, folks. Get those in for Wednesday. Yeah.
Let's hear what your best option is for the New York Jets at quarterback. Unfortunate news for Aaron Rodgers done for the year. At BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Whatever questions have come to mind now after one NFL week of the 2023 season, you can drop a question in the YouTube comments as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Matt and I back tomorrow. Peacock and Williamson.